Season 14 is almost over, and Season 15 is just around the corner. I wanted to do a tier list that tells you how good AD carries are at the end of Season 14, which ones are actually good, and see how that changes going into the Season 15 meta. Now, Season 15 comes with a lot of new changes to objectives and just how the game is played, new mid lane changes that make roaming easier and things like that. And the objectives and changes on the map that are going into Season 15 also make the game more early game centric and reward snowballing and early aggression. So that's a lot of systemic changes going on to the game, and as such, it affects AD carries and which ones are good and which ones are bad. So first off, I want to rank all the actual marksmen in the role. I know that mages and other characters are actually really good, but a lot of people that play bot lane just want to play marksmen. They're fun and they're like the primary role in which you get to play them. So let's go ahead. Right now in Season 14, utility AD carries I think are really the best that you can be playing. I feel like it's a utility AD carry meta minus Varus because of his nerfs. Usually it's Ashe, Jhin, and then Varus. But I think after Varus's nerfs, I just don't think he's that great. And so Varus drops a little bit lower to me, like around here. Just like the mana cost nerfs, the damage nerfs, it's a lot harder to like bully with him, I think. So end of Season 14, I have Varus like right here. I think Ashe and Jhin are just premier AD carries right now. And then on top of that, I think Corki, just with his buffs and everything, he's just so strong, and Caitlyn as well. I think these are like the 4 best AD carries that you can play. And if you're not playing them, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot in terms of like laning phase. And then because items are not that great on AD carries and they're really expensive, you just really never get the time to scale. So you not only do you lose lane, and now you're trying to get to like Infinity Edge on your 3rd item, but the game is already kind of like snowballed out of control and all the major things have already happened to the point where you're just not contributing as much, because even when you do get those items, you just don't scale as well. So these are the 4 best ADCs right now. I would also put Jinx up here as well. I think Jinx is also amazing, but she just has a problem where she has some bad matchups, and it feels really bad to blind pick her. But I think she's more of a high variance. But I definitely think she's like, I definitely think she's top tier though. These 4 champions I just think are blind pickable, which is like really nice. But I think if you're like the lower elo you go, the more blind pickable Jinx is. And I just have the stats up here on the right, so you can also like see it's obviously just like in Diamond Plus, so it's not like the very, very high elo, but I just want to choose like an elo that is like has enough games played with the data so that you can actually see how things are going. Because if you go too high elo, you will be able to see like the pick rate of things. So like if I switch this to, let's say like Masters Plus or whatever, you do get to see worldwide. I guess there actually is a lot of games because this is kind of the end, towards the end of the patch. So in Masters Plus, like even Jinx has like a ton of games. And so I think she's really good, but just kind of struggles in certain matchups. So just be careful of that. Other AD carries that I think are really good. I guess let's look in the order for that I have right now. Miss Fortune. I think after her nerf, she's just like not as good. Let's add a tier above this and just use this as the placing tier. Okay, let's do this as D. And we'll leave this as undecided. After her like nerfs a long time ago when she was kind of like considered meta, and even when she was kind of considered meta in pro play and played like the LCS and things like that, I just don't think she was as broken as people thought she was. She was still really good, but she definitely had weaknesses. I think if you can see, you saw in pro play like really good AD carries, like really good Korean and Chinese AD carries would play Miss Fortune, and although she has impact, you just don't have the same level of carry and maneuverability potential as something like Kai'Sa or whatever. And so even especially with after her nerfs, I don't think she's quite trash, because I think Miss Fortune's base kit in general is just like really good, especially in like lower elos. But I do think she's like not really that great right now. I kind of hope they buff her back, because I feel like Miss Fortune should be a champion that has like a really high win rate, and she does actually in Masters Plus have like a really good win rate. But Miss Fortune is one of those champions that has a really high baseline, but not a high ceiling. And so whatever her performance is right now is pretty much how well you can do with her, with not much variance above. Whereas other champions, their win rate might be lower, but like if you play them well, their actual potential strength is a lot higher. Let's move on to Aphelios. I think Aphelios is in a bad spot right now. Probably one of the worst champions you can play. He's just like a worse Caitlyn. There's really not a reason to play him. When Aphelios is strong, you should know. But I think he should be probably one of the lower AD carries right now. 51% win rate. He's played a ton. Obviously, he's one of the hardest AD carries to play, but yeah, he's not really in a good spot. And I don't think any pro player thinks that he's in a good spot either. Let's go with, actually, let's move everything up a little bit like this. Yeah, let's move everything up a little bit like this. I don't think he's in a good spot, but there's definitely things that are worse than him, like that are unplayable and things like that. So and this is for end of season 14. Let's go with Kog'Maw. I think Kog'Maw's really good right now. He surprisingly has like a good laning phase. I don't know why he has a good laning phase. Let's move this down. I think he's better. He's better, definitely better than Varus. He surprisingly has like a really good laning phase. And like I don't know, he just has a really good. He's really strong for the majority of the game. His only weakness is his mobility, but he can like brawl you to death most of the time, and just straight up win. And then his laning phase is also good. And so really the only thing that he struggles with is getting ganked and camped, and just kind of run down. And so as long as your team is protecting you somewhat, you can kind of just run away with the game and snowball. And so I think Kog'Maw's actually in a really good spot right now, at least by the end of season 14. And his items are also really good. The items that are good for Kog'Maw right now, like let's take a look at his build. Yeah, Rageblade Bork. Well, this is kind of crazy, but let's take a look at his like first items that are like really good. So, like he's like really good with Rageblade right now. We'll look at like actual built sets without boots. So like Bork Rageblade Hurricane is doing really well. Bork Rageblade Wits End. And tanks are like really an issue, and Kog'Maw's like one of the few AD carries that can kill tanks while still having a good laning phase. And so if the game goes on really late, Kog'Maw will still do really well into tanks. But if the game doesn't go really late and you snowball, you can still kind of just like close out the game because you're kind of like a late game scaling monster on top of having a good laning phase. And his base HP and base stats are actually really high for AD carries. Mostly because he doesn't have mobility, so Riot kind of gives him like insane base stats. I just think Kog'Maw's really good, but it's really just depending on what you can. You just have to watch out for matchups. Like I would rather pick, if I'm blind pick, I'd rather pick Varus. But if I kind of know the matchup, I'd rather pick Kog'Maw. But I think overall Kog'Maw's ceiling is higher. So this ranking is probably going to be for like mostly power ceiling. Just be wary of like counter picks and stuff like that. And under the same vein, I kind of think Xayah falls into that category as well. Really, really good in the situations where she's great in. Okay in the situations that she's like okay in, and really bad in the situations that she's bad in. Whereas like Caitlyn, Jhin, Ashe, and Corki, they're kind of great in all situations. And there's a few situations where they're amazing in, but they're almost always good or great. These two champions, Kog'Maw and Xayah, are amazing in like 33% of situations, and like complete trash in like 33% of situations. So just be careful with these. All right, let's kind of fill these out. I actually think Sivir's really good right now. I don't know if I would put her here or here. I think her ceiling is kind of. I'll put her more with like Varus. I think her ceiling is a little bit low. She just has some bad matchups, like playing into some of these AD carries, like longer range AD carries in lane is like really miserable. But she's just like a really solid pick. Like Sivir's an AD carry where if you care more about consistency, you play a lot of games and you have a really good mental and mindset, I think Sivir is really good. She's just a consistent AD carry, and if you never tilt, then Sivir is just going to get you value over like a large amount of games. What else? Kalista, the pro play nightmare. I think Kalista's in like a terrible spot right now. She is getting buffed in season 15, but I think right now, I don't think I would ever recommend someone playing this in solo queue. I don't think she's like the worst ADC in the world, but like she's definitely not up here, but she's not like down here with like some other AD carries that I'm about to mention. So I'll put her with Misfortune. Twitch is like complete dog water. This is the worst he's ever been. Twitch should be, by all rights, one of the best and highest performing AD carries in the game. But right now, he is among the worst. He has the perfect solo queue kit. So he's a perfect solo queue kit, and he's really easy to play. He's mechanically easy to play, and all he has to care about is macro. And so if he has a really low win rate, that means he's complete trash. So I think he's in the dumpster. Actually, I think Aphelios is down here with him, to be honest. I would not put Aphelios. I would not put, yeah, these two are like bottom of the barrel together. I think Zeri is also terrible. Speaking of terrible champions, I love Zeri. I think you can make her work, but this is just not the meta for Zeri. She kind of wants, ever since they nerfed her durability and her tankiness, she really wants an enchanter to help her actually have the durability to play aggressively with her dash, because a lot of her damage is gated behind her dash and keeping up her ultimate. If they're able to run away and run out of and make her ultimate timeout, then Zeri's kind of trash in team fights. And so you like the Uintel Wild Arrows rework was really nice for her, but I still don't think she has like, it's not like she has insane hyperscaling damage. She's not like great at killing tanks. She's really good at outputting DPS to a whole entire team over the course of a long fight. and putting out damage, but she's not really good at bursting down one high priority tank. And so Zeri really wants prolonged team fights, and she needs the durability to like kind of play aggressively and like get that AoE damage off. She can't just be sitting back and waiting for a time to walk in and auto. She kind of always wants to be autoing, and then using her mobility to dodge key things. And this is not really the meta for that. There's a lot of like high priority assassins and bruisers and things that can just one tap you if you get caught by their CC. And Zeri has a really hard time avoiding all those things, and you really don't get an enchanter every game. Because I don't think enchanters are really that popular right now. Let's take a look. Okay, Lulu is really popular, but outside of Lulu, it's like Lulu Nami. And if you have a Lulu, like that's all nice, but if you don't, um, you're kind of really at the mercy of like the team composition and like what the enemy has. So I wouldn't recommend picking Zeri. There's just other things to pick. I'd wait until like she gets either another mini rework or just more items that really benefit her. Other champions that I think are dog. I think Vayne. If you're picking Vayne bot, you're just trolling. Her laning phase is garbage. She's really good at killing tanks, but by the time that is actually relevant, you've lost all of your base and all of your bot lane turrets, and you have no pressure on the map, and you have half the CS of the enemy bot lane because you're playing Vayne into Ashe or Vayne into Jinx. You're playing Vayne into Ashe, Caitlyn, Corki, Jhin, or Jinx, and you're just getting absolutely demolished in lane. Unless your support is just actually a god. But at that point, if you had a god-like support and you're playing any other AD carry, you would have been doing way better. I also think Kai'Sa's not in a good spot right now after her like nerfs and nerfs the items. Items are just not really good with it for her right now. I think the static shiv nerf like really hurt her. Let's see where her stats are. Yeah, she's going like Kraken right now. Kraken Rageblade. Kraken Rageblade Nashers still, but I mean she's good at killing tanks. She's good at killing tanks. I like the Terminus. There's this Terminus build that's going on. That's actually pretty interesting too. She's really good at, actually, I don't think I would put her down here. I think she's like her laning phase isn't good, but I wouldn't put her on the same level as like Vayne, Zeri, and all those other champions. Kai'Sa can get snowballing a little bit easier with like an opportunistic support to help you, and I think she scales better. It's like her laning phase isn't. Her laning phase is kind of like the same as these, but like comparable to the D tier champions. But I would say that that's bothering me. Her laning phase is similar to these D tier champions, but I would say that Kai'Sa's mid and late game is a little bit better when she hits her double evolution, and so is a lot better when she hits her double evolution, especially her Q evolve. So I'd rather put her like C just for her carry potential. It's just a lot higher. She has a lot more agency when she does hit her items compared to these champions. What else? Tristana, Smolder, Lucian, Samira. In high elo, I would put Samira down here. But for most other players outside of the Apex tiers, I would put Samira up in C tier. She just has like her laning phase is she's super dependent on her support and like her duo partner. But the one thing I will say for Samira that's really nice is just that like solo queue is so disorganized that outside of Apex tiers, I just don't think she can get punished that hard. So I just think she has way more agency compared to like Twitch and all these other champions. But you do just auto lose if you just get a support that refuses to play something that is good with you. Draven. I don't think this is the best spot Draven's ever been, but it's hard for Draven to ever be like a terrible solo queue champion. I would put Draven. I put Draven here. A lot of the AD carries right now do have good laning phases, but Draven's still Draven. He does an absurd amount of damage, and if he snowballs, the game's over in solo queue. And so I think Draven's one of those champions where if you do have a really good duo queue partner, you can kind of just steal games because the enemy duo might not be bot lane. And if the enemy duo partner is not bot lane, then you just have a massive advantage and ability to snowball the game. So for that reason, I think Draven is basically a better Samira in terms of like his effect on the game. Samira, they obviously do different things, but Draven just is way more consistent and way more scary. Whereas Samira, it requires a lot more setup. So I think Draven still belongs to be like high, but Draven's like, it's hard for Draven to be below like even B or it's hard for Draven to be below B pretty much. What else? Tristana, Ezreal, Smolder, and Lucian. I mean, I think Lucian's kind of garbage. Like, I don't think there's a reason to pick Lucian ever. Like, just pick Draven in solo queue. Like, if Lucian's good, you'll know because all the top level players love playing Lucian. And like, how's he doing right now stats wise? Lucian, where are you? He's down. He's like here. The top level Lucian's players are like D1. Yeah, like I can't really see a reason to pick Lucian right now. Essence Reaver. It's like the Essence Reaver Flicker Blade build. Like I just don't. He doesn't really feel like he has a good build path. He obviously still slaps if he gets ahead, but if he's not ahead, then he's like literally useless. And it's Lucian's similar to Draven in the fact that you kind of want a good duo partner because you want to snowball the game. And if you don't snowball with Lucian, then you're pretty much you picked a useless champion. But Lucian feels impossible to snowball with unless you are duo queued with a support that's on the same page. So you're essentially just flipping. If you're playing solo, you're essentially just flipping games to get a support that is kind of on the same wavelength as you. And if you don't get a support that's on the same wavelength as you, then you're kind of just useless. You might have as well just picked anything else that has way better solo potential and like consistent power output. Like Caitlyn, even if you don't have a good support that's duoed with you, you can kind of still just do Caitlyn things. Same thing with Jhin. You can kind of just push in, scale, land your Ws, ulti, and impact team fights. Jinx, you can kind of just like farm and wait for kills to fall into your lap and just reset. And you're like a late game. You can scale into the late game really well and have high impact. Ashe, you always have arrow. You can just push and farm up and still be useful. And Corki kind of just is good at all points of the game. It always can do damage because he has infinite range with his ulti and just insane burst damage and mobility. So like Draven, Lucian is like Draven. He wants to snowball, but he's just worse at it. For that reason, I'm just going to put him down here in D. Tristana, Ezreal, and Smolder. Right now, Smolder is fine. He's not down here. Maybe I put him like here in B tier. He's like, he has potential. It's not like a Smolder meta or anything. So like I wouldn't, like there's better things to play than Smolder, but like he's not bad. He still does smaller things. Ezreal's weird for me because like I don't feel like Ezreal's good, but like the best players make him look broken. So like, I feel like he can't be. I don't think Ezreal can't be like on the same tier as like these champions. Like Ezreal can't be on the same tier, like C tier with Kai'Sa, Kalista, Misfortune, Samira. Like he's just better than those. But I just don't think he quite compares to like the S tier champions like Corki, Ashe, Caitlyn, Jinx, and Jhin. He's to me, Ezreal is just a consistently really good champion, but he's like at the top. He's either at the top of B or like the bottom of A for me. If you're really really good, I feel like he looks broken. He's basically consistent, just like these champions, like Sivir, Varus, and Smolder. But I feel like his skill ceiling is way higher, and that's what makes it hard for me to say he's like on the same level as A or B. But I'll put him on the top of B for now. And the last marksman to go over is Tristana. I don't know how to rate Tristana, honestly. I never see her, and I don't really play her anymore. Outside of her being like a mid lane pick, like way back when during the AD carry broken phase. But Tristana's really good stats. Is it like the they're going like collector build? I guess she's like kind of. I guess she's like similar to Draven. She's kind of like a Samira, but she's just kind of like a Samira level of all in, but can also just default to like a laning pushing playstyle. Yeah, if I look at her like Samira and Lucian, she feels worse than Draven, but better than Samira and Lucian. And for that reason, I put her between those two. Put her in probably B tier, where she has a lot of presence in terms of like being able to all in. But I guess that flexibility of being able to push and just play for first towers and stuff is also really good. So this is what I would put for patch 14 by the end of season 14. Going into season 15, though, the game shifts towards a more aggressive early game centric playstyle. And so it rewards early aggression, getting first towers, first bloods, and things like that. So I think naturally I would shift everything up that is really gets rewarded by that. So like stuff like Draven, I'd probably shift up. Stuff like Tristana, Samira, Lucian, I'd shift up a little bit. And then I would shift down anything that really is kind of antithesis to that and kind of wants to play slower, more methodical, and more opportunistic and kind of wait for things to come to them. So Corki, I think, still fits this playstyle. He's a really good laning phase, and he's good at all points of the game. And so I think he still fits, and he's good here. I think Ashe also, they are nerfing Ashe going into season 15, but I think that Ashe's laning phase is still good, and I think that she still provides like mid-game utility for when the new objective Otacon spawns. So for that reason, I think Ashe is still top tier. And because Otacon can spawn near bot lane and in a really controlled place where Caitlyn can have prio, I think if Caitlyn has prio, I think she can kind of snowball the game out of control because she doesn't have to get kills, but she can get lane control, get first tower, which contributes towards the upgraded boots for her team. And then she can control traps around Otacon and really secure that objective and make it easier to take. So I still think I think all the top level AD carries actually stay. With the exception being Jinx, I think Jinx might drop, but I can kind of see her staying still. Um, just because if the game snowballs out of control and like Jinx does have like lane pressure, she gets kills or whatever, I think Jinx is still insane. Um, I think stuff like Xayah and Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw just has a hard time. I feel like Kog'Maw drops a little bit. Um, I think Xayah. I think Xayah can stay. Um, Sivir, I feel like drops a bit. Sivir really wants to like have a slow game. Although she can get lane pressure and take first tower, but I just don't think her lane matchups into like a lot of the top level AD carries are that great. And so now if you're forced to be playing aggressive and like if you lose first tap, like if you're getting punished harder for like losing first tower or getting first blooded or anything like that, Sivir doesn't really have a lot of agency, and so you can't really, if you're not the one forcing the issue and making sure that your team does get first tower, and you're not the one that makes sure your team gets first blood, that means it's out of your control, which I think Sivir doesn't have great control over. I do think she's great at team fighting, but I just think the time where she comes online is just going to be a lot lower. Misfortune, I can kind of see her going up a little bit. Smolder, I think, goes way down. Honestly, he might be. I think I'd drop him down to like kind of the bottom of the barrel. I think his laning phase isn't that great in bot lane, and I think the fact that he really doesn't want a bloody game and he really doesn't want the tempo of the game to go very fast, it's going to be a real struggle for Smolder. Yes, Baron is pushed back 5 minutes, but there's just going to be way more fighting that you're just not going to be impactful during for Smolder. Twitch, I think Twitch is a weird one. I think Twitch should get slightly better. I just don't think that, I think the items are just really bad for him, but I think the meta does make Twitch a little bit better just because, actually, no. I think people are just going to be, I think it's for Noxious early game domination. He doesn't have a good laning phase, and I think people are going to start deathballing a lot earlier, which makes it harder for Twitch to get picks and like play this rat playstyle. So I just don't think Twitch is really going to get much better. Let's take a look at Ezreal. Ezreal also really wants like slower games, but he can play opportunistic. I think really good Ezreal players can really output a lot of damage even early game and prevent themselves from getting like first blooded. I think Ezreal can defend his tower, make sure that he farms and play weak side very well. But I think if you do play strong side in Ezreal, I think good Ezreal players can take advantage of it. So I wouldn't move Ezreal, I don't think. I think Varus, I would move Varus up if it wasn't for his nerfs. I feel like Varus is so good kit-wise for this style. I think I'll still move him up. I think his laning phase and his ability to fight is still like really strong. So although he's nerfed, I just think he's one of the better ADCs to like actually like fight on and like trying to control laning phase. His competition, Varus just feels like a step down below like Ashe, Caitlyn, and Jhin. I think he's on the same type of ADC, but he's just a step below that, and so I feel like he still is like really good. Going into the next meta, Misfortune. I think for Apex tier she wouldn't be. I don't think she. I think for Apex tier she's probably C tier, but for everyone else I think she's probably around like B. So for that reason I think I'll move her up. She has a good laning phase, good poke, and then if Otacon becomes a really pivotal thing to fight around, I think Misfortune having her ultimate and getting ready to 4v4 team fight around Misfortune ultimate, I think that's a really good time. And it's not like Misfortune spikes at a pretty early time. Like she only really needs 1 item, 2 items. And so I think Misfortune is in a decent spot. She's not like great, but I definitely think she's like in a decent spot. Kog'Maw will be good around burning down objectives, and he's still like strong mid game. So I would let's actually check. I think Kog'Maw is pretty good throughout the whole entire game. I think he scales win rate versus game length. Yeah, he actually has like a very like weird curve. You'd think he's a hyperscaler, but like he actually kind of peaks in the mid game, drops, and then goes up if the game goes like super long. I just think like tanks and stuff kind of screw him over if you don't have really good coordination. So I think Kog'Maw's still fine to be here. Let's look at the trash. Do any of the trash move? I think Zeri is probably going to be in the worst state she's ever been in season 15. She has a hard time forcing the issue in lane to get first blood. She almost never gets first tower. She's probably still better than Vayne, so I'll put Vayne completely last. Vayne is probably the antithesis of the Noxious season like persona. She does not get first tower. She does not have lane control. She does not have good tools to get first blood and things like that. So like I just think it's really good in the tank killer meta. Vayne is really good in the tank killer meta, but where she has like space to farm and it's like really slow bot lane. But outside of that, she gets bullied by all the S tier AD carries. Aphelios should be good, but his numbers are just bad. Like I think this would be fine meta for him going to season 15, but his numbers are just bad. I think like if his numbers were good, he could be like up here, but he's just undertuned right now, and so for that reason, I think he's just bad. Lucian, good for this meta, but he's just undertuned, bad numbers, and it's a worse version of Draven and Samira. So like, why pick Lucian? Callista should be good. Callista should be better, and she's getting some buffs. So I think I'd move her up. She's getting buffs that detach. Normally, when Callista gets slowed, her dash speed also gets slowed, and so her dash speed gets slowed. She also auto attacks slower because she spends more time dashing. They're decoupling that and making her dash speed only get slowed by attack speed slows, which I think will help Callista a lot because there's just a lot of like random things you can pick her against Callista that make her like way harder to play. But Callista's like a utility AD carry that like in this kind of meta would be up here if she was good. But I just don't think I think she's a little bit undertuned right now. She's just a pro gelled champion. But I think with the round of buffs that she's getting and the type of meta that's shifting towards, I do think she becomes better. And outside of that, I think Kai'Sa is also really bad in this meta. Kai'Sa just doesn't want to fight until she gets evolutions. And so I almost would want to drop her down to like unplayable. I feel like she is like all these other AD carries down here, but I think she's just a little bit better than them, kind of like Sivir. Whereas like I think Sivir and Kai'Sa logistically should be down here, but I think their numbers are good enough to where I put them in C tier right now. And that's kind of good for me. Obviously, mages and some early game champions like Nyla and stuff are way better right now in bot lane. But if you're looking to play ADCs and Marksman specifically in the bot lane, then I think this should be pretty beneficial for you depending on what elo you're on. Obviously, in the Apex tier, some things drop, like Samira. Like if you're like Masters Plus and you're a challenger or whatever, obviously you're not going to see a Samira in your lobby or anything like that. But for the majority of players, I think this should kind of suit all your needs. And kind of just pick based upon what champions fit you, and just be wary about which champions are blind pickable and which champions are counter pick. Most of the things in S tier I think are blind pickable outside of Jinx. I think Jinx kind of struggles to be blind pickable, but the lower elo you go, the easier it is to blind pick Jinx. I think Xayah as well in A tier is also not great as blind pickable, and Samira as well is not great as blind pickable. And the last champion that I think is kind of you should worry about being blind pickable is Kog'Maw. But again, like I said, the lower elo that you go, the less that matters. And if you find a champion that is in like the upper echelon, then you'll probably do well as long as you get some mastery on them. My recommendation, as always, is always to find a champion that I think that the best recommendation to have, if you don't really mind what champion you play, is find the best performing champion with the lowest pick rate. That means you'll consistently be able to get that champion. People also won't be as familiar playing against that champion. And if they're good on that patch, which means their numbers are strong or they have good items, they have a good build path, then you also will be playing a strong champion. That trifecta of things really helps boost performance, I think, as long as you're quick to pick up a champion and you're quick to learn and you have the time to actually put into those champion. But that's it for the prediction for Season 15 and the Season of Noxious and Domination. I hope you guys liked it.